Hello, everyone, and once again, welcome you all to another podcast themed Transforming Industrial IoT with AI, Smarter Insight, Better Decision. I'm your host, Saurabh Sasidharan, Customer Success Manager for ARC Advisory Group, India, and I'm excited to bring you to another insightful discussion. Joining with me today is our esteemed guest, Mr. Pawan Kumar, Business Unit Head, Digital and Advanced Technologies, Tata Consulting Engineering Limited. And to help to guide our conversation, I would like to welcome my co-host, Rajkumar Paira, Director of Research at ARC Advisory Group. Rajkumar, over to you to request an introduction from Pawan and then proceed with our questions.
Yes, thank you, Saurabh. Nice to be here. And Pawan, thanks for joining for this session. So I'd like to ask Pawan if you want to give your small introduction from your side before we start the real podcast.
So thanks, Raj, and thanks, Saurabh, for giving me this opportunity to discuss about AI and how AI is affecting or how it's impacting things under industrial processes. So, just by introductions, my name is Pawan. I work at Tata Consulting Engineers. I head the Digital and Advanced Technologies business unit here. So prior to Tata Consulting Engineers, my background is about 8 years with Accenture, and before that I was with Infosys, uh, doing work in the engineering domain side. Thanks very much. Over back to you, Raj.
Thanks, Pawan. Yeah. As our theme is like transforming industrial IoT with AI, smarter insights, better decisions. So we have been listening that as AI as a more than a buzzword that is evolving at an incredible pace and making waves across different industries. So in your view, Pawan, how is AI transforming industrial engineering and operations, and what key technologies are driving this transformation?
So Raj, thanks, and I'll just give you my view in terms of and our experience with the customers, with our clients, and some of our esteemed clients in terms of how they are adopting AI and how AI is helping them, with their operations, with their engineering outputs, and some of the key technologies around it. Uh, AI is being primarily used by most of these companies monitoring, optimizing, and even forecasting some of the key decisions or some monitoring some of the key elements, optimizing some of their operations, and even forecasting some of the failures, the breakdowns, and even outputs to do their current operations and how they are actually working. So data which is getting generated from sensors, data that is being generated historically, real-time data, uh, data that can be used by failure modes, some of the data that has been gathered from the old thing. So all this data put together, driven by AI, which is more like the generative models, the deep learning models, the regression models. These are the ones that are actually utilizing this particular data and then making this thing predictive. So a lot of sensor AI based sensor driven analytics, they detect anomalies, whether it's a optical sensor or a vibration sensor or a temperature sensor. These are giving data. I mean, these sensors are providing data for the operators to look at, how the machines are operating. Can we do a descriptor? Can we do predictive analytics based on the particular data? So some of the things that we are constantly seeing are models like YOLO, mask R, convoluted neural networks, uh, and we are also seeing a lot of LLMs, right? Like large language models that are using this particular data, and something very similar to ChatGPT, GPT-4. They assist the operators. In troubleshooting, decision making, and these advancements, all these AI models are actually minimizing downtime. They're optimizing most of the processes, and overall improving safety of the workers in the factories. So, in long and short of
That's fantastic, Pawan, to know more about that. We see that in today's fast-paced industrial landscape, when you see that we get some unexpected equipment failures can bring entire production lines to a halt, leading to a costly probably downtime time and expensive repairs. In view of that, how does AI-powered predictive maintenance assist industries in minimizing downtime and costs?
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. When these machines or these factories that have been in running for a long time, just an outage of say about an hour, 2 hours, or 4 hours can really, really cost these particular factories a lot of money in terms of their downtime. So you have very standard preventive maintenance that you always use. For this particular, when you look at standard preventive maintenance, these things are. But what AI is now helping us to do is it is helping us to predict a particular failure of certain equipment. Now, ideally, when you have that kind of data and that kind of accuracy with the current models that have been built up, it is imperative for you to actually go for a very standard maintenance procedure before something can actually break down. So, for example, you cannot have something like a blast furnace in the steel factory come down because to bring it up, it could ideally take about 2 months for it to be working at an optimal level. So all the data that you have, the failure modes that you have, and when you apply AI, whether it's a regression, whether it is some convoluted neural networks in terms of prediction of when this equipment is going to fail or when this particular process is going to come down and give you suboptimal outputs. These things can then be very, very clearly looked at with these particular models. And then you can apply what we call a reliability centric maintenance rather than a very preventive maintenance. So that is something that AI has been really helpful in terms of, and the models that the AI, artificial intelligence, and thing can be done. They are extremely, extremely useful in preventing these kind of things and thereby increasing your output, your increasing your reliability, and also safety, as I mentioned earlier. So these things, this is where AI is really, really helping people. And of course, what it does is it reduces your spend in the long run on maintenance of this equipment. So which ultimately adds to your bottom line. So that is how these things are.
That's great, Pawan, to know about predictive maintenance, how it is helping the production downtime, how we can minimize in the plant. So we talked about AI, we talked about something on LLMs and GPT-4, we talked about predictive maintenance. Now we see the engineering world is really undergoing a profound transformation with the advent of like Gen AI,
Correct.
which right that can create innovate complex solutions, scenarios, and automate problem routine tasks. So my question is, what role does Gen AI play in industrial engineering, particularly in accelerating development of engineering deliverables?
So Raj, you've touched on a great point. No, AI, as it was traditionally looked at, a couple of years, has evolved quite a bit now. Everybody is talking generative AI. Now, typically, generative AI is now basically a game changer, right? Now, everybody is working towards generating deliverables based on artificial intelligence. So I'll just give you a simple example, right? You have a process flow diagram. Based on the process flow diagram, heat mass balance, you generate PNIDs, right? Now, how can generative AI do this and take, increase what was, decrease what was taking 3 months of effort to probably a couple of hours or a couple of days, right? So, what generative AI does is it looks at images, it looks at algorithms, it looks at a lot of past data in terms of what it is, and it generates something which is corresponding. So a lot of engineering deliverables that we talk about typically which are used for a particular project, for a large projects like a PNID, single line diagrams, your engineering list, your material list, your line list. All these things can actually be generated using AI. Obviously, if you have enough information or enough contextual information that is already there, right? So again, this becomes very, very complex. It's not that easy. However, I think we've started to make a lot of progress in terms of generating some of these engineering deliverables using Gen AI. I think there's a lot of work that is going on from a research perspective, also in the universities, whether it's Europe and sometime in the US as well. But I think what it requires is a lot of engineering knowledge and a lot of past engineering data for your AI, for your Gen AI to develop or come out with outputs which are very, very close. But I think we are getting there. We at TCE have made significant progress as well in some of generating some of these engineering deliverables through Gen AI. Some of this we are trying to patent as well in terms of how it is. But what it has done, at least some of the tools that we have rolled out to our engineers, we are already seeing some significant improvement in terms of the amount of time that was being spent earlier versus what is getting done now. Right?
Probably the Gen AI would be a very big advantage when you probably analyze some unstructured or semi-structured data, like what you mentioned about images or any audio file, video file. So that probably a big push for this use.
Correct, Raj, you're absolutely right. It's just a lot of data that is available,
Yeah,
and what you have to generate is contextual. I mean, you
correct,
can
correct.
that's very important when it comes to generative AI. Whatever that you are generating, whatever output that you want, has
Yeah,
to be a lot more contextual. It can't be hilly as you know all of the things put it. So. That's where the models have to become very, very strong. The training data for those particular models have to be very, very strong, and they need to be as accurate as possible. So that's where we are working on them very, very extensively. We're trying to make our models as accurate as possible, so that the work that the designers and the engineers that they look after, that they do, can be very accurate as
yeah. So good. So we have been discussing for last probably more than 5 6 minutes about benefits of using AI and AI and probably LLM models, all these things in the industrial applications. And now I come to little bit different side, which we see the integration of AI with the IoT is transforming industries by enabling smarter, more autonomous probably, and that improve efficiency and decision making. But when in the other side, what are the primary challenges that industries encounter when integrating AI into IoT systems, and what strategies can be employed to address these challenges?
well. Right. So, Raj, you touched a very important point. See, there are nothing comes free, right? I mean, everything
Yeah,
comes at a cost. And people have to realize that when you're trying to use AI, generative AI, uh, you will face challenges in terms of processing power. You will face challenges in terms of data integration. You will face challenges because you'll have to host some of this in the cloud because it needs to scale a lot. Uh, and you will also face challenges in terms of workforce adapting to these particular things. So, just give you an example. You will require a large amount of high performance GPUs when you want to implement something like this,
yeah,
right? You will have to ensure that whatever you are hosting, if you're hosting it on cloud, your data has to be absolutely safeguarded when it comes to your data not being exposed to other people in terms of what it is.
true.
You also have to be very, very clear on what data that you're collecting, how do you ensure that the outliers are always taken out when you're building things into your model? So you need a lot of domain expertise as well to make that thing happen. So
Then
uh,
then then the security part as well probably you want to.
absolutely. You don't want unwanted access. You don't want to be open to cyber attacks. These are things that you will really have to look out for. Now, to address this, obviously, a couple of things, very strong cybersecurity frameworks are already available in the market. You have to, make sure that all those things are there. Secondly, you have to make a right mix in terms of, how much data do I want to put on cloud? How much resources do I want to use from cloud? How much resources do I need to use in-house? So there's an optimal use of the resources in terms of GPUs, in terms of storage, so that everything works out financially as well. Uh, Thirdly, you need to have really high quality training data for your models, right? You need to know which data outliers that you need to take out. You need to just then keep improving your models, right? You have to keep ensuring that the models that you build, the right kind of parameters are getting tuned so that the output of these particular models is extremely high. And then finally, you have to ensure that the workforces who are adopting these models are trained enough to ensure that they can handle this. You have to upscale a lot of people, and then you also have
Exactly.
a bunch of change management that needs to be done. So yeah, all these put things together, I'm sure things can actually.
Good, Pavan. We discussed a lot about benefits, then challenges, and now I come to almost the end of my podcast. So over the next probably 3 to 5 years, we expect to see transformative AI trends from the probably widespread adoption of Gen AI and autonomous AI agents to advances in the predictive analytics, computer vision, or probably conversational AI. With this dynamic landscape in mind, what AI trends should industries prepare for the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a very good question, Raj. And as you mentioned, right, everybody is moving towards autonomous agents. Now we are, I think, restricting ourselves to more predictive and prescriptive kind of maintenance. But prescriptive plus autonomous healing is going to come, right? It is. I don't think it's an option, but it will be a necessity. So people will have to be prepared to ensure that they have put in those models which are more predictive, prescriptive, and self healing as well. So, those things are definitely going to come. We will definitely see a lot of virtual replicas of industrial assets for predictive analytics and command control centers coming all over the place with the prices of the GPU and all the computing coming down. So you will see a lot of command control centers that will be working for most of these factories. So people need to be aware of that. Quantum computing is something that we are seeing. We're seeing a lot of research. So, I mean, the amount of data that can be processed and the amount of the speed at which it's going to get processed is going to increase. We will see a lot of improvements in those things. So. Getting the right data and ensuring that that data is available for the machines to compute and the right data to there is something that people will start working on very very rigorously over the next 5 or 6 years so that they can then become this thing. Uh, People will start, I mean, people have to start investing in infrastructure. They will have to start investing in the right kind of machines, software, cloud, to ensure that they can leverage everything. People have to upskill. I mean, it's not that AI or Gen AI is going to take away jobs. I think it's just the fact that people have to upskill so that they can really improve. So that's something that the overall AI ecosystem is going to change. The skills that people are going to have, the kind of skills that they need to acquire, apart from traditional engineering skills, the other AI skills that people have to acquire in terms of betterment, those things have to improve. And also, I think the multimodal AI, right, which means when we say multimodal AI, and I think as you had alluded to earlier in our conversations, whether it is contextual data, whether it is data from social media, whether it's data from trainings, everything will now get molded into a very larger ecosystem, and that will even enhance further automation and decision making. So few things that we are seeing, which is quantum computing, agents, multimodal AI, upskilling, and a heavy investment in AI infrastructure are the few things or the few trends that I see in the next couple of years.
Thanks, Pawan, for your very good insight on this space. I hope our viewers will get benefited out of this. So I
My
thank you
pleasure.
again, and I'll hand over to my colleague Saurabh.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much, Pawan, for being part of our podcast and for sharing your valuable insight with our audience on how AI for industrial IoT is transforming. And thanks to Rajkumar for seamlessly coordinating the discussion. To our audience, to stay connected with Pawan and receive further updates from TCE, please check the description. Also, to know more about AIC Advisory Group, I would like you to visit the website www.arcon.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to exploring more exciting topics in the next episode. Thank you.